There are moments, rare moments, when time itself seems to pause, not for the world, not for the crowd, but for you. And this is one of those moments. Something about July 28th feels different, doesn't it? You couldn't explain it at first. Maybe it was just a subtle shift in your spirit, a quiet restlessness you tried to ignore. Maybe it was the way certain memories resurfaced out of nowhere, or how certain people started acting strange, distant, observant, almost as if they were watching you, but not with admiration, with calculation. And here's the truth you weren't expecting: they have been watching you. Not casually, not randomly, but closely. Because something about you has changed and they don't understand how. Archangel Michael steps forward in this moment, not with noise, not with chaos, but with authority. And his presence carries a message that interrupts everything you thought you knew about your current season. This is not just another day. This is not just another message. This is a divine interruption. Because July 28th was not chosen by coincidence. It was marked in the spiritual realm long before you ever reached it. Marked as the moment where silence begins to break, where hidden conversations begin to rise, where what was whispered behind your back starts to echo into truth. And you feel it, don't you? That strange awareness, like something is being revealed without anyone saying a word. That's because it is. You see, while you were focused on healing, on growing, on simply trying to survive your own battle, something else was happening behind the scenes. People who once overlooked you, dismissed you, underestimated you have been forced into a quiet realization. You are not the same person anymore. But here's the part that makes this moment so powerful. You didn't announce your change. You didn't gather people and declare, "Look at me now." You didn't explain your growth. You didn't defend your evolution. You just became. And that's what unsettled them. Because transformation that happens in silence is the most threatening kind of all. Archangel Michael reveals that this date, this very moment, is when the veil begins to thin between what is hidden and what is seen. The things they've been saying in private, the thoughts they've been holding back, the quiet admissions they never intended for you to know, they are rising now. Not to harm you, but to confirm you. Because you've been questioning yourself, haven't you? Wondering if you've really changed, if your growth is real, if the distance you feel from certain people is something you caused or something deeper. And heaven answers clearly: you didn't lose them. You outgrew the version of yourself they were comfortable controlling. That's why July 28th carries weight. Because this is the moment where confusion begins to turn into clarity. Where doubt begins to dissolve. Where you start to see what your spirit have been trying to tell you all along. This is the moment where you realize it was never in your head. A shift was real. A tension was real. The distance was real. And most importantly, your transformation is undeniable, even to those who refuse to admit it out loud. Archangel Michael stands as a witness to this change, not just observing but protecting. Because when truth begins to surface, so does reaction. And not everyone will celebrate what is being revealed about you. But you are not here to be celebrated. You are here to be aligned. And this date, this divine interruption, is pulling you into that alignment, whether you feel ready or not. So don't brush this moment off. Don't scroll past what your spirit is trying to hold on to. Don't ignore the feeling that something significant is unfolding right now. Because it is. And this is only the beginning. Type "I am aware" in the comments if you feel this shift. Blessing code 2828 is now activated around your spirit. There is something almost unsettling about the way you changed, not loud, not dramatic, not something that demanded attention, but something deeper, something quieter, something that unfolded in places no one else could see. And that is exactly why it carries so much power now. Because while others were busy watching for obvious signs, waiting for you to fail, waiting for you to react the same way you always did, you were transforming in silence. No announcements, no explanations, no validation. Just change. You didn't wake up one day and decide to become someone new. It didn't happen in a single moment. It wasn't one conversation, one breakthrough, or one realization. It was a series of small, almost invisible decisions. Decisions to stay quiet when you used to argue. Decisions to walk away when you used to chase. Decisions to protect your peace when you once sacrificed it just to keep others comfortable. And the strange thing is, no one clapped for you while it was happening. No one noticed the nights you chose growth over reaction. No one saw the internal battles you fought just to keep your spirit steady. No one heard the prayers you whispered when everything inside you wanted to break. They didn't see the discipline. They didn't feel the restraint. They didn't witness the healing. But they see the result now. And it confuses them. Because they remember who you used to be. They remember how you reacted, how you responded, how predictable you were when pressure was applied. They knew a button to push. They understood your patterns. They were comfortable with your old version because it was familiar, manageable, controllable. But now you don't respond the same. Now you pause. Now you observe. Now you choose silence over chaos. And that silence, it's louder than anything you could have said. Archangel Michael reveals that this kind of transformation, the kind that happens internally before it ever shows externally, is the most disruptive force you can become in someone else's expectations. Because when people cannot predict you anymore, they lose the sense of control they once had over you. And that's exactly what has happened. You didn't just change your behavior. You changed your energy. You changed your frequency. You changed the way you carry yourself in rooms where you once felt small. You changed the way you look at situations that once overwhelmed you. You changed the way you interpret silence, rejection, and distance. You stopped taking everything personally. You stopped explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped shrinking just to maintain connections that were draining you. And you did all of this quietly. That's why it unsettles them so deeply. Because they didn't get to witness your transformation in real time. They didn't get to adjust gradually. They didn't get a warning. One day, you were operating in a way they understood, and the next, you became someone they couldn't figure out anymore. And when people can't understand your growth, they start talking about it. Not openly, not directly, but in fragments, in private conversations, in subtle observations disguised as concern. They begin asking questions they don't have answers to. What changed about them? Why don't they react anymore? Why do they feel so different? They won't say it out loud, but they feel it. You've outgrown the version of yourself they were comfortable with. And here's where it becomes even more powerful. You didn't change for them. You didn't change to prove anything. You didn't change to impress anyone. You didn't change to gain approval. You changed because something inside you refused to stay the same. Something inside you got tired of repeating cycles. Something inside you got exhausted from carrying emotional weight that was never yours to hold. Something inside you finally said, enough. And from that moment forward, everything began to shift. Archangel Michael speaks clearly here. This kind of silent transformation is divinely protected. Because when growth happens in private, it is purified. It is not influenced by outside opinions. It is not shaped by validation. It is not weakened by doubt from others. It becomes solid. unshakable, real. That's why even now, as people begin to notice, to question, to quietly admit that something about you is no longer the same, they cannot pinpoint exactly what changed. They can only feel it. And what they feel is your elevation. You've become someone who no longer needs to prove anything. Someone who no longer reacts out of emotion but responds with awareness. Someone who no longer chases understanding from people who refuse to see clearly. You've become steady. And in a world where chaos is normal, steadiness is intimidating. So let them wonder. Let them question. Let them quietly admit what they don't fully understand. Because your transformation was never meant to be explained. It was meant to be lived. And now it's being witnessed, even by those who never expected you to rise like this. Type "I have changed" in the comments if you feel this truth. Blessing code 3737 is now activated around your transformation. There is a conversation happening and your name is in it. Not once, not casually, not in passing, but repeatedly, intentionally, and with a tone that shifts depending on who is listening. And the most unsettling part is this: you were never meant to hear it. You were never supposed to know the depth of what is being said when you are not present. But now, something is changing. The silence that once covered these conversations is beginning to crack, and what has been hidden is slowly rising to the surface. Archangel Michael reveals that behind closed doors, in quiet corners, in moments where masks drop and truth slips out unfiltered, your transformation has become a topic of discussion. Not because they want to celebrate it, but because they cannot ignore it. You have become something they did not anticipate, and now they are trying to understand it without admitting how deeply it affects them. At first, the conversations were subtle. Light observations, casual remarks. Someone mentioning how you seem different lately. Another agreeing, but quickly shifting the topic. They tried to downplay it, to treat it as temporary, as something that would pass. But it didn't. You didn't. And now, the tone has changed. Now there is curiosity mixed with discomfort. Now there are questions layered with hidden tension. Now there are statements that reveal more than they intend. They begin to analyze you, to piece together what changed, when it changed, and why they no longer feel the same sense of familiarity they once had with you. But here is the truth they won't say out loud. They are not just talking about your change. They are reacting to how your change makes them feel about themselves. Because your growth has created a mirror, and in that mirror, they are forced to see what they avoided for so long. Your discipline highlights their inconsistency. Your peace exposes their chaos. Your silence reveals their need for control. Your distance forces them to confront their own dependence on the version of you that no longer exists. And so the conversations deepen. Some speak with confusion. I don't know what happened to them. Some speak with subtle irritation. They think they're better now. Some speak with quiet envy. I wish I had that kind of control. But none of them fully understand what it took for you to become who you are now. They did not see the breaking points. They did not feel the loneliness that came with choosing growth over familiarity. They did not experience the internal war that had to be won in silence. And because they did not witness the process, they cannot comprehend the outcome. Archangel Michael makes this clear. What they are admitting in secret is not just about you. It is about the loss of access they once had to you. It is about the shift in power they can no longer control. It is about the realization that you are no longer operating from the same emotional space that once made you predictable. You are no longer easy to read. You are no longer easy to influence. You are no longer easy to reach in the same ways. and that unsettles them more than anything else. There are moments in these conversations where truth almost surfaces completely. Moments where someone nearly says they've grown. Moments where someone all but admits we can't treat them the same anymore. But just as quickly, those moments are pulled back, covered with excuses, masked with dismissive language, buried under pride. Because to admit your growth fully would require them to acknowledge their own lack of it. And that is a truth many are not ready to face. So instead, they circle around it. They analyze from a distance. They question without seeking real answers. They speak about you as if you are a mystery, when in reality, you are simply a reflection of what happens when someone chooses to evolve beyond their limitations. And here is where the shift becomes undeniable. These conversations are no longer about who you were. They are about who you have become. They are trying to understand your boundaries. They are trying to interpret your silence. They are trying to predict your next move. But they cannot. Because your transformation did not follow a pattern they could study. It followed a calling they could not hear. Archangel Michael stands as a witness to every word spoken, every thought formed, every hidden admission made in these private moments. Not to expose them for harm, but to reveal to you that your growth has reached a level that cannot be ignored, even by those who resist it. You may not hear these conversations directly. You may never be present when they happen, but you will feel the shift they create. You will notice the change in energy, the difference in tone, the subtle distance or unexpected attention. That is your confirmation. You are being dismissed not because you are doing something wrong, but because you are doing something rare. You change, and you did it without permission. And now, even in secret, they are being forced to admit it. Type I see the truth in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 3939 is now activated around your awareness. As this truth settles into your spirit, understand this: every time light exposes what was hidden, it is not just for you, but for countless others still walking in confusion. When you choose to support this message through Super Thanks or through the PayPal link in the description, you are not giving to a voice. You are igniting a fire that reaches souls who are still searching for clarity. The word declares, what you sow in secret, God will reward openly, and in this moment, your seed becomes a river flowing into lives that are waiting for awakening. Say it within yourself now: I am part of this mission, and let that decision move you into action. This is not a donation. It is alignment with divine purpose, a prophetic step that multiplies truth beyond what you can see. Those who give in this moment are not just supporting. They are activating blessings that return in ways only heaven can orchestrate. Step forward now, release your seed, and become a vessel through which this message continues to reach the hearts that need it most. There is a reason this is happening now. Not earlier, not later, not at some distant, undefined time, but now, in this precise moment, when the atmosphere around you feels different, heavier with awareness, sharper with clarity. This is not random. This is not coincidence. This is timing, divine timing. Because exposure does not happen when you demand it. It happens when you are ready to handle what is revealed. And that is where you are now. Archangel Michael steps forward with a message that cuts through confusion and settles into certainty. What has been hidden is rising, not to overwhelm you, but to align you. Because there were things happening behind the scenes that you could not have handled before. Conversations that would have hurt you more deeply. Truths that would have distracted you from your growth. Energies that would have pulled you back into cycles you were trying to break. So heaven allowed silence. Heaven allowed distance. Heaven allowed you to move forward without full awareness of what was being said, what was being planned, what was being felt in secret. Not because you were being left in the dark, but because you were being protected from reacting too soon. But now that protection is shifting into revelation. Because you are no longer the same person who would have reacted emotionally, impulsively, defensively. You are no longer the version of yourself that needed validation, that chased explanations, that tried to fix what was never meant to be fixed. Now, you can see without reacting. Now, you can understand without engaging. Now, you can observe without losing your peace. And that is why the truth is rising now. Archangel Michael reveals that exposure is not punishment for them. It is preparation for you. It is the clearing of your path. It is the removal of illusion. It is the dismantling of every false perception that once kept you connected to things that were quietly working against your growth. Because as long as something remains hidden, it holds a certain level of power. It operates in shadows, influencing outcomes without being seen, shaping dynamics without being questioned. But the moment it is exposed, its power begins to collapse. And that collapse is happening now. You may not hear every word that was spoken. You may not receive direct confirmation of every hidden intention. But you will feel it. You will sense it in the way people interact with you differently. In the way certain energies no longer feel the same. In the way situations that once confused you suddenly become clear without explanation. That is exposure in motion. It does not always come with confrontation. It does not always come with dramatic revelations. Sometimes, it comes as quiet knowing. A deep, undeniable awareness that settles in your spirit and does not need to be proven. And once you know, you cannot unknow. That is why this moment is so critical. Because when truth rises, it creates a decision point. Not for them, but for you. A moment where you must choose how you will respond to what is being revealed. Whether you will fall back into old patterns of reaction, or step fully into the new level of awareness you have been growing into. Archangel Michael is clear. This is not the time to react. This is the time to recognize. To recognize the difference between who is aligned with you and who is not. To recognize the patterns that no longer serve you. To recognize the subtle ways you were being pulled into dynamics that kept you from moving forward freely. Because exposure is not just about seeing others clearly. It is about seeing your own path clearly. And for the first time in a long time, your path is becoming unobstructed. The confusion that once surrounded certain relationships is dissolving. The questions that once kept you uncertain are being answered without words. The emotional attachments that once held you in place are loosening their grip. This is what happens when truth rises. It does not just reveal, it releases. It releases you from the need to understand everything. It releases you from the need to explain yourself. It releases you from the weight of carrying connections that were never aligned with your growth. And as this release happens, something else takes its place. Clarity. A clarity that is not loud, not overwhelming, but steady. Grounded. Unshakable. You begin to see people for who they are, not who you hoped they would be. You begin to understand situations without needing closure from others. You begin to move differently, not out of fear, but out of awareness. And that awareness becomes your protection. Archangel Michael stands in this moment as a guardian of that clarity, ensuring that what is being revealed to you is not lost, not ignored, not dismissed. Because this is not just information, it is alignment. It is the final piece that allows you to step fully into the version of yourself that no longer tolerates confusion, no longer entertains misalignment, no longer questions what your spirit already knows. This is why truth is rising now. Because you are ready to carry it without losing yourself in it. because you are strong enough to see clearly and still remain grounded, because you have grown into someone who does not need to react to be powerful. And as this exposure continues, as more becomes clear, as more is revealed in subtle and undeniable ways, remember this: you are not being shown this to go backward. You are being shown this so you can finally move forward without anything hidden standing in your way. Type "I walk in clarity" in the comments if you receive this message. Lesson code 4040 is now activated around your discernment. Something has shifted, and even if no one has said it directly, everyone who once had a certain level of access to you can feel it. The balance has changed. The dynamic is no longer what it used to be. And what they are struggling to understand is not just that you have changed, but that the change has quietly removed something they once relied on. Control. Not always obvious control. Not always aggressive or intentional, but subtle control. Emotional influence. Predictability. The ability to anticipate how you would react, how you would respond, how far they could push before you bent, before you explained, before you adjusted yourself to maintain the connection. That version of you is no longer available. Archangel Michael reveals that your growth did more than heal you. It disrupted systems. Systems that were built around who you used to be. Patterns that functioned because you participated in them. Expectations that held weight only because you fulfilled them. And the moment you stepped out of those patterns, everything attached to them began to collapse. That is the shift in power. Because power is not always loud. It is not always visible. Sometimes, power is simply the ability to no longer react the way others expect you to. The ability to remain steady when pressure is applied. The ability to walk away without needing to prove a point. And that is exactly what you have developed. You no longer argue to be understood. You no longer chase to be chosen. You no longer explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. And in doing so, you remove the very mechanisms that allowed others to feel a sense of control in your presence. Now, they cannot predict you. Now, they cannot easily influence your decisions. Now, they cannot access the same emotional responses they once triggered so effortlessly. And this is where the discomfort begins for them. Because when control is lost, confusion takes its place. They begin to question what changed. They begin to test boundaries, sometimes subtly, sometimes more directly, trying to see if the old version of you is still accessible. They may bring up old topics, revisit past dynamics, or attempt to interact with you in ways that once worked. But now it feels different. Because you are different. And every time you respond with calm instead of emotion, every time you choose silence instead of reaction, every time you hold your position without needing validation, you reinforce this new dynamic. You reinforce that the shift is real. Archangel Michael speaks with clarity here. This is not about overpowering others. This is about reclaiming yourself. Because the control that once existed was not always malicious, but it was limiting. It kept you operating within a version of yourself that was shaped by external expectations rather than internal truth. And now, that limitation is gone. But here is what makes this moment so significant. The shift in power is not something you announced. It is something others discovered through your absence of reaction, through your change in behavior, through your refusal to engage in the same cycles. And that discovery is unsettling, because people are comfortable with patterns. They are comfortable with predictability. They are comfortable when they understand how someone will respond. But when the predictability disappears, it creates a gap, a space where they no longer feel certain of their position in your life. And that uncertainty forces them to confront something they avoided before. They must now adjust to you, not the other way around. This is where the true shift in power becomes evident. You are no longer adapting yourself to maintain connections. You are no longer bending to keep peace at the cost of your own stability. You are no longer negotiating your boundaries to make others comfortable. Instead, you are standing in a position that requires others to meet you where you are, or remain where they have always been. And not everyone can rise to meet that level. Some will resist it. Some will question it. Some will interpret your growth as distance, as coldness, as detachment. But what they are truly experiencing is the absence of the version of you they once understood. And that absence feels like loss. But it is not your loss. It is the loss of control they once had. Archangel Michael reminds you that this shift is not something to fear, nor is it something to reverse. It is a natural result of growth that is aligned with truth. When you become more aware, more grounded, more intentional in your actions, you naturally step out of dynamics that require you to be less than who you are becoming. And that stepping out changes everything. It changes how people approach you. It changes what they expect from you. It changes the role you play in their lives. And most importantly, it changes how you see yourself. You are no longer someone who needs to be managed, influenced, or guided by external opinions. You are someone who moves with awareness, who acts with intention, who chooses alignment over approval. That is power. Not power over others, but power within yourself. And once that power is established, it cannot be taken, only surrendered. So let them feel the shift. Let them question the change. Let them adjust to the new dynamic. Because what has shifted was never meant to return to what it was. You have moved forward, and in doing so, you have redefined the balance completely. Type "I stand in my power" in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 5151 is now activated around your authority. There is something happening now that cannot be reversed, something subtle at first, almost unnoticeable unless you are paying close attention. The same people, the same voices, the same faces, but something about them feels different. The energy has shifted. The tone has changed. The familiarity that once felt natural now carries a strange tension, a quiet balance that you cannot quite ignore anymore. This is not your imagination. This is revelation. Because when you change, when you grow beyond the version of yourself that others were used to, it does not just affect you, it exposes them. It reveals what was always there but hidden beneath comfort, routine, and the illusion of connection. And now the mask is slipping. Archangel Michael makes this clear. What you are beginning to notice is not something new. It is something that was always present, but your previous level of awareness did not allow you to fully see it. You were giving from a place of trust, from a place of openness, from a place of believing that what you offered was being returned in the same way. But now, you see the imbalance. Now, you notice the subtle shifts in behavior. The way certain people react when you speak with confidence instead of hesitation. The way they respond when you set boundaries instead of overextending yourself. The way their support feels conditional, dependent on whether your growth aligns with their comfort. And this is where truth begins to surface. Because false loyalty does not reveal itself when everything is stable. It reveals itself when you change. When you stop playing the role they were comfortable with. When you no longer provide the same emotional access, the same level of availability, the same willingness to adapt yourself to their expectations. That is when their true position becomes clear. Some will distance themselves quietly, unable to adjust to the new version of you. Some will remain close, but their energy will feel different, less supportive, more observant, as if they are trying to understand where they stand now. And some will begin to reveal something deeper. Jealousy. Not always obvious, not always expressed openly, but present in subtle ways, in the tone of their voice, in the way they respond to your progress, in the absence of genuine excitement when something good happens in your life. Because your growth has forced a comparison they cannot avoid. Archangel Michael reveals that hidden jealousy often disguises itself as concern, as advice, as casual remarks that seem harmless on the surface but carry a deeper meaning underneath. Comments that question your decisions, that subtly challenge your confidence, that attempt to bring you back to a level they are more comfortable with. You've changed. You're not the same anymore. You used to be different. These statements are not always neutral. They are reflections of discomfort, signals that your evolution has created a gap, the distance between who you were and who you are becoming. And not everyone is willing to cross that distance with you. This is the moment where discernment becomes essential, because not every smile is support, not every presence is alignment, not every connection is meant to continue into the next version of your life. And the more you grow, the more this becomes clear. You begin to notice who celebrates you without hesitation and who hesitates before showing support. You begin to feel who is genuinely aligned with your progress and who is quietly unsettled by it. You begin to recognize the difference between those who uplift you and those who only felt comfortable when you were operating at a level that did not challenge them. This is not about judgment. This is about awareness. Archangel Michael reminds you that seeing clearly does not mean reacting immediately. It means understanding what is being revealed without losing your center. It means allowing the truth to settle without forcing confrontation. It means recognizing that not everyone who was part of your past is meant to be part of your future. Because growth creates separation. Not always physically, not always immediately, but energetically, emotionally, spiritually. It creates a distinction between those who can evolve with you and those who remain attached to the version of you that no longer exists. And as this distinction becomes clearer, the mask continues to slip. You may notice inconsistencies in behavior, moments where words and actions do not align, situations where support feels forced or incomplete. These are not random. They are indicators, small but significant signs that reveal the true nature of certain connections. And once you see them, you cannot go back to not seeing them. It is the power of this moment. Because now, you are no longer operating from assumption. You are operating from clarity. You are no longer giving blindly. You are giving with awareness. You are no longer maintaining connections out of habit. You are choosing alignment based on truth. And that changes everything. Archangel Michael stands as a guide in this process, reminding you that not every revelation requires immediate action. Some truths are meant to be observed, understood, and allowed to unfold naturally. Because when you remain steady, when you do not rush to react, when you allow people to reveal themselves fully, the clarity becomes undeniable. There is no confusion. There is no second guessing. There is no need to force understanding. The truth speaks for itself. So let the mask slip. Let the inconsistencies reveal themselves. Let the hidden emotions surface in their own time. Because what is being shown to you now is not meant to pull you back into questioning. It is meant to move you forward with certainty. You are seeing clearly now, and that clarity is your protection. Type "I see clearly now" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 6161 is now activated around your discernment. There is more happening than what your eyes can see, more than what conversations reveal, more than what behavior suggests. Because what you are experiencing is not just a shift in people, It is a shift in the unseen forces that were once comfortable operating around you. This is where everything goes deeper. Because your growth did not just change your mindset, your behavior, or your boundaries. It changed your position in the spiritual realm. It altered your frequency, your alignment, your awareness. And when that happens, it does not go unnoticed, not by people, and not by the forces that influence them. Archangel Michael steps forward here with authority, making something very clear. What you are facing is not just emotional tension, not just relational distance, not just human misunderstanding. There is a spiritual battle that has been quietly unfolding behind the scenes, one that intensified the moment you began to rise beyond the version of yourself that was easier to control, easier to confuse, easier to keep in cycles. Because when you were operating in patterns, there was no resistance. When you were repeating the same reactions, the same attachments, the same emotional loops, everything around you remained stable, predictable, contained. But the moment you began to break those patterns, the moment you chose awareness over reaction, growth over comfort, clarity over confusion, something shifted. Resistance increased. You may have felt it without fully understanding it. The sudden tension in situations that once felt normal. The unexpected distance from people who once felt close. The strange heaviness that appeared when you made decisions aligned with your growth. The way certain moments felt more intense than they should have been. That was not random. That was resistance to your elevation. Archangel Michael reveals that every level of growth introduces a level of opposition, not to stop you, but to test whether you will remain aligned with the path you have chosen. Because transformation is not just about becoming something new. It is about maintaining that new version of yourself when pressure is applied. And pressure has been applied. But here is what you must understand. This battle is not about you as a person. It is about what you represent. It is about the shift you carry, the clarity you hold, the disruption your presence creates in environments that were once comfortable with cycles of confusion and limitation. You have become someone who sees differently. And when you see differently, you move differently. When you move differently, you respond differently. And when you respond differently, you break patterns that others were unconsciously depending on. That is why the tension feels so precise. Because it is not random conflict. It is targeted resistance. Not necessarily from people acting with intention, but from the energy behind the dynamics that no longer has the same access to you. The same influence. The same ability to pull you back into old patterns. And when that access is restricted, it wrecks. Archangel Michael stands as a protector in this moment, reminding you that you are not navigating this alone. That the awareness you have gained is not accidental. That the clarity you feel is not something you created on your own. It is something you were guided into, something you were prepared for, something you are now being supported in maintaining. Because the battle is not to pull you back immediately. The battle is to make you question your growth, to make you second-guess your boundaries, to make you wonder if you are being too distant, too different, too detached, to make you feel as though returning to old patterns would restore balance. But that is the illusion. Because the balance you once knew was built on a version of you that no longer exists. And returning to it would not bring peace, it would bring regression. This is why staying grounded in your awareness is critical now. Because the more you remain steady, the less influence this resistance has. The more you trust what you have seen, what you have felt, what has been revealed to you, the stronger your position becomes. Archangel Michael makes it clear, this is not the time to engage in unnecessary conflict. Not the time to prove anything. Not the time to confront every inconsistency or question every shift in behavior. This is the time to observe, to remain aligned, to allow the battle that is not yours to fight to unfold without pulling you into it. Because not every battle requires your participation. Some battles are resolved simply by your refusal to return to who you used to be. And that is where your strength lies now. In your stillness, in your awareness, in your ability to remain unchanged even when everything around you reacts to your change. This is the unseen victory. Because while others may only see the surface, conversations, reactions, shifts in behavior, what is truly happening is a reordering of everything that once operated around you. Old patterns are losing their hold. Old influences are losing their access. Old dynamics are losing their stability. And that loss creates resistance. But resistance does not mean you are moving in the wrong direction. It means you are moving forward. Archangel Michael stands with you in this moment as both a protector and a reminder that what is happening around you is confirmation, not confusion. That the tension you feel is not a sign to retreat, but a sign that something has been disrupted in a way that cannot be undone. You have crossed a threshold, and once crossed, there is no returning to what was, only continuing into what is becoming clearer with every step you take. I remain steady in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 7171 is now activated around your protection. There are truths that people will never say to your face, not because they are untrue, but because saying them out loud would require a level of honesty they are not ready to confront. And yet, those same truths are being spoken, quietly, indirectly, in spaces where they feel safe enough to let their guard down. This is where the real confession lies. Not in public, not in confrontation, but in private moments where pride loosens its grip just enough for truth to slip through. Archangel Michael reveals something striking here. Your enemies, those who doubted you, those who questioned you, those who once felt superior in ways they never admitted openly, are now acknowledging your transformation in ways they never expected to. They are saying things they never thought they would have to say. Not to you, but about you. Statements that carry a weight they cannot deny. Observations that expose a shift they cannot ignore. Quiet admissions that reveal something deeper than curiosity. Respect, mixed with discomfort. Because what they are witnessing now is not the version of you they dismissed. It is the version of you they underestimated. And that realization is not easy for them to accept. You see, envy does not always begin as hatred. It often begins as comparison, as observation, as a subtle awareness that someone is moving in a direction you did not expect. And when that movement continues, when it becomes consistent, when it becomes undeniable, that comparison turns into something heavier. It turns into quiet recognition. They are not the same anymore. They've really changed. They don't react like they used to. These are not just comments. These are confessions. Confessions that your growth is real. Confessions that your discipline is visible. Confessions that your presence has shifted in a way they cannot control. And here is where it becomes even more revealing. Some of these confessions carry something they will never openly admit. Admiration. Not pure, not free of ego, but present nonetheless. Because deep down, beneath the discomfort, beneath the resistance, beneath the quiet tension, there is an awareness that what you have done is not easy. They know it. They see it. They feel it. They understand that the version of you standing now required something they have not yet been willing to face within themselves. It required discipline when comfort was easier. It required silence when reaction was expected. It required letting go when holding on felt safer. And that is where the confession deepens. Because in recognizing your growth, they are forced to confront their own stagnation. Archangel Michael reveals that this is why the conversations about you carry such a complex energy. It is not just criticism. It is not just curiosity. It is a mixture of acknowledgement and resistance, of recognition and denial. They admit your strength but question your intentions. They recognize your discipline but downplay its significance. They see your change but struggle to accept what it means. Because to fully accept your transformation would require them to accept that they remain the same. And that is a truth many are not ready to face. So instead, the confessions remain incomplete, half-spoken, filtered through pride, wrapped in language that softens their impact. But even in that softened form, the truth is still there. You have changed, and they know it. There are moments when these confessions become clearer than they intended. Moments when someone slips, when a statement is made that carries more honesty than expected. Moments where the tone shifts, where the words hold a weight that cannot be disguised. And if you listen closely, not to the words themselves, but to the energy behind them, you will recognize it. You will recognize the acknowledgement they cannot fully express. Archangel Michael reminds you that hearing these confessions is not about validation. You did not grow for their approval. You did not transform for their recognition. You did not evolve to prove anything to anyone. But these confessions serve a purpose. They confirm what you already feel. They reinforce what you already know. They validate the shift you have experienced within yourself. Because even those who resist it cannot deny it. And that is the power of true transformation. It does not require agreement. It does not depend on acceptance. It does not need to be announced. It simply becomes undeniable. So let them speak in private. Let them admit what they cannot say to you directly. Let them process your growth in the only way they know how. Because their confessions are not shaping your reality. They are reacting to it. And that reaction is proof that you have moved beyond what they expected, beyond what they predicted, beyond what they believed you were capable of becoming. You are no longer who they remember. You are who they are trying to understand. Type "I am undeniable" in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 8282 is now activated around your elevation. And as this truth settles into your spirit, understand this. Your awakening is not meant to stop with you. Every revelation you receive is a seed, and when you choose to support this mission, through Super Thanks or the PayPal link in the description, you are planting that seed into the lives of others who are still searching for clarity. The word speaks, those who sow in righteousness will reap a harvest of light, and in this moment, your giving becomes a divine act that opens pathways for truth to reach hearts in darkness. Say it within yourself now, "I am part of this light," and let that declaration move you into action. This is not support for a channel. It is alignment with a calling, a prophetic response that carries urgency in this very moment. Those who step forward now are not just giving. They are activating a flow of blessings that returns multiplied in ways only heaven can orchestrate. Move now, release your seed, and become part of what God is doing through this message. There is a reason you have not been shaken the way others expected you to be. A reason why certain things that should have pulled you back did. A reason why, even in moments where confusion tried to rise, something within you remains steady, grounded, untouched in a way that you cannot fully explain. That reason is not accidental. That reason is protection. Not the kind of protection you can always see with your physical eyes, but the kind that operates before anything reaches you. The kind that redirects, that blocks, that softens impact, that shields you from what was meant to disrupt your path before it ever has the chance to fully form. Archangel Michael stands at the center of this revelation, not as a distant presence, but as an active force surrounding your life right now. Because your growth did not just elevate you, it placed you in a position where protection became necessary. Not because you are weak, but because you are valuable. Because what you carry now is different. Your clarity, your awareness, your ability to see beyond surface-level interactions, these are not ordinary. They are the result of a transformation that has aligned you with something deeper, something more intentional, something that requires preservation. And that preservation is happening now. You may not have noticed every moment it occurred. You may not have realized how many situations you were quietly removed from, how many conversations you were not included in, how many opportunities that seemed right at first were suddenly delayed or redirected. But those moments were not random. They were protection in motion. Archangel Michael reveals that there have been forces, seen and unseen, that no longer have the same level of access to you. Not because they stopped trying, but because something has been placed between you and them. A boundary that is not just physical or emotional, but spiritual. A boundary that filters what reaches you. A boundary that limits what can influence you. A boundary that ensures that what is not aligned with your path cannot remain connected to you for long. This is why certain people have distanced themselves without clear explanation. Why certain dynamics have shifted without direct confrontation. Why certain situations that once felt stable suddenly became uncomfortable or unsustainable. It was not loss. It was protection. Because not everything that was familiar was meant to follow you into this next phase. Not everything that once felt comfortable was aligned with who you are becoming. And rather than forcing you to navigate those separations manually, something greater has been guiding them naturally. Archangel Michael makes this clear. Protection does not always feel like comfort. Sometimes it feels like disruption. Sometimes it feels like confusion. Sometimes it feels like something being taken away before you fully understand why. But in time, the clarity follows. You begin to see what you were being shielded from. You begin to understand why certain paths closed, why certain connections weakened, why certain opportunities did not unfold the way you expected them to. Because what is meant for you does not require compromise of your growth. What is meant for you does not pull you back into patterns you have already outgrown. What is meant for you aligns with the version of you that exists now, not the version that existed before. And this is where your protection becomes even more evident. Because now, it is not just about what is being blocked. It is about what is being allowed. You will notice that the things entering your life now feel different. More aligned. More intentional. Less forced. There is a sense of ease. Not in the sense that everything is effortless, but in the sense that it fits without requiring you to shrink or adjust yourself in ways that compromise your stability. That is alignment under protection. Archangel Michael stands as both guardian and guide, ensuring that as you continue to move forward, you are not exposed to the same level of interference that once surrounded you. Not because challenges will disappear, but because you now have a layer of awareness and support that prevents those challenges from destabilizing you in the same way. This is why your reaction has changed. Because you are no longer reacting from a place of vulnerability. You are responding from a place of security. A security that comes from knowing, whether consciously or intuitively, that you are not navigating this alone. That there is something watching, something guiding, something ensuring that your path remains clear even when the surroundings attempt to shift. And that knowing changes everything. It removes fear. It reduces doubt. It replaces uncertainty with trust. Not blind trust, but grounded trust. Trust in what you have experienced, in what you have observed, in what has been consistently proven through the way things have unfolded in your life. Archangel Michael's message is clear. You are covered. Not in a way that makes you untouchable, but in a way that makes you guided. Protected from unnecessary harm. Redirected from misalignment. Positioned in a space where your growth can continue without being compromised by what no longer belongs in your life. So do not question every shift. Do not resist every change. Do not hold on to what is being removed. Because what is leaving was not meant to stay under this level of protection. And what is coming will meet you there. Type "I am protected" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 9191 is now activated around your life. There is a moment in every transformation where everything you have learned is tested not through comfort, not through ease, but through pressure. And this is that moment for you. Because now that things are being revealed, now that you are seeing clearly, now that you are recognizing what was hidden, there is a natural impulse that begins to rise. An urge to respond, to address, to correct, to speak what you now know with certainty. But Archangel Michael steps in with a warning that carries weight. This is not the time to react. Not because your voice does not matter. Not because what you have seen is not real. But because reaction, in this moment, would pull you back into the very dynamics you have just outgrown. You see, there are people who are expecting a response from you. They are watching. Not openly, not obviously, but quietly, attentively, waiting to see if the version of you they once knew is still accessible. Waiting to see if they can trigger the same reactions, the same emotional responses, the same need for explanation or defense. Because if you react the same way, then nothing has truly changed in their eyes. And this is the test. The test is not whether you can see the truth. The test is whether you can hold the truth without feeling the need to prove it. Archangel Michael reveals that silence, in this moment, is not weakness. It is discipline. It is control. It is the highest form of power you can exercise right now. Because silence does not mean you are unaware. It means you are aware enough to not engage unnecessarily. And that distinction is critical. Because reaction feeds the very cycles that once kept you in place. It invites conversation that leads nowhere. It opens doors that were already closing. It creates opportunities for misunderstanding, for manipulation, for being pulled back into emotional spaces you have already moved beyond. With silence does something different. Silence creates distance. Silence creates clarity. Silence allows everything that is being revealed to fully unfold without interference. When you remain silent, you give people the space to reveal themselves completely, without interruption, without guidance, without influence. And in that space, their actions become clearer. Their intentions become more visible. Their position in your life becomes undeniable. Archangel Michael makes this clear. This is not about suppressing your voice. It is about choosing the right moment to use it. Because not every truth needs to be spoken immediately. Not every realization requires confrontation. Not every situation benefits from your direct involvement. Some things resolve themselves when you simply step back. And that is where your power lies now. In your ability to observe without reacting. In your ability to understand without engaging. In your ability to remain grounded even when everything around you is shifting in response to your growth. This is not easy. Because there will be moments where you feel the pull to respond. Moments where silence feels uncomfortable. Moments where you question whether saying something would bring clarity or closure. But Archangel Michael reminds you, clarity has already been given to you. Closure does not always come from conversation. Sometimes a closure comes from acceptance. Acceptance of what you have seen. Acceptance of what hath been revealed. Acceptance of the fact that not everything needs to be addressed for it to be understood. Because once you understand, your actions naturally align with that understanding. You begin to move differently without needing to explain why. You begin to distance yourself without needing to announce it. You begin to protect your energy without needing to justify your decisions. And that silent movement speaks louder than any reaction ever could. It communicates that you are no longer operating from the same place. It reinforces that the shift is permanent. It shows that your growth is not temporary or situational. It is established. Archangel Michael emphasizes that this silence is also a form of protection. Because when you do not react, you do not give others access to your current state. You do not reveal your thoughts prematurely. You do not expose your strategy, your direction, your next steps. You remain centered. And in that centered state, you are far less vulnerable to influence. This is why silence is powerful now. Not forever. Not in every situation. But in this moment it is necessary. Because what is being revealed still needs to fully unfold. What is being exposed still needs to reach its natural conclusion. And your reaction could interrupt that process. So remain steady. Let the truth settle. Let the dynamics reveal themselves completely. Let people show you who they are without interference. Because the more you allow this process to unfold without reacting, the clearer everything becomes. There will come a time to speak, a time to act, a time to make decisions that reflect everything you now understand. But that time is not driven by impulse. It is guided by clarity. And clarity is what you are being grounded in right now. So trust the silence. Trust the restraint. Trust the fact that not reacting is not losing your power. It is preserving it. Because the strongest position you can hold right now is one of calm awareness. Type "I choose silence" in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 1010 is now activated around your discipline. There comes a moment, a very specific moment, when everything you have been sensing, everything you have been observing, everything that has been quietly unfolding around you reaches a point where it can no longer remain in uncertainty. That moment is not loud. It does not arrive with an announcement. It arrives as clarity. And once that clarity settles in, everything changes. This is the turning point. Not because something external suddenly shifts in a dramatic way, but because something internal within you becomes final. A decision forms, not out of emotion, not out of reaction, but out of understanding. A decision that says, without needing to be spoken out loud, "I see it now and I cannot go back to not seeing it." Archangel Michael reveals that this turning point is where transformation becomes permanent. Because up until now, there was still a space, small, subtle, but present, where doubt could exist, where you can question your perception, where you can wonder if what you were feeling was accurate or if you were reading too deeply into situations. But that space is closing, because what has been revealed to you is no longer partial. It is complete enough for you to move forward without hesitation. This is where everything begins to align. Your thoughts become clearer. Your decisions become more intentional. Your movements become more precise. You are no longer navigating based on assumption. You are navigating based on awareness. And that awareness creates a shift that others will feel immediately, even if you do not say a single word about it. Because when someone reaches a turning point like this, their energy changes. The way they carry themselves changes. The way they engage, the way they respond, the way they allow access, all of it adjusts naturally. You no longer need to force distance. Distance happens. You no longer need to explain your boundaries. They become evident. You no longer need to question who belongs in your life. It becomes clear. Archangel Michael emphasizes that this turning point is not about cutting people off in anger or making sudden, emotional decisions. It is about quiet separation, intentional alignment, choosing where your energy goes based on what you now understand. Because now you understand. You understand the conversations that were happening without your knowledge. You understand the shifts in behavior that once confused you. You understand the tension that you could feel but could not explain. And most importantly, you understand your own growth. This is where everything stabilizes. Because once understanding replaces confusion, you stop searching for answers outside of yourself. You stop needing confirmation from others. You stop waiting for clarity to come through conversation or explanation. You already have it. And with that clarity comes peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from everything being perfect, but the kind of peace that comes from no longer being uncertain. The kind of peace that allows you to move forward without hesitation, without second guessing, without looking back to see if you made the right choice. Because you know. This is also the moment where alignment begins to accelerate. Because when you are no longer holding on to what is misaligned, you create space for what is aligned to enter. And that space is opening now. Your connections will begin to feel different, more natural, less forced, more balanced. You will notice that the energy you give is matched, not taken. The understanding you offer is returned, not questioned. The presence you bring is appreciated, not analyzed. This is the result of your turning point. Because you are no longer available for what drains you. You are only available for what aligns with you. Archangel Michael reveals that this is where your path becomes clearer than it has ever been. Not because everything is mapped out in detail, but because you are no longer distracted by what does not belong on your path. You are focused, grounded, turn, and that certainty creates momentum. A forward movement that does not rely on external validation, that does not pause for approval, that does not slow down for misunderstanding. You simply move. And as you move, everything that is not aligned naturally falls away. Not through force, not through confrontation, but through lack of compatibility with who you have become. This is the power of your turning point. Because it is not about changing others. It is about fully stepping into the version of yourself that no longer needs to adjust for anyone who is not aligned with your growth. And once you step into that fully, everything else adjusts around you. Archangel Michael stands with you in this moment, not just as a witness, but as confirmation that what you are experiencing is not confusion, not coincidence, not something to question. It is completion. The completion of a phase where you were still discovering your growth, and the beginning of a phase where you live in it fully. There is no going back, only moving forward with clarity that cannot be undone. Type "I step forward" in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 1111 is now activated around your next chapter. This is the moment where everything comes together, not as a theory, not as a possibility, but as a decision. Because everything you have heard, everything you have felt, everything that has been revealed to you up to this point was leading here, to this final realization. You are not who you used to be. And more importantly, you cannot return to who you used to be. Archangel Michael stands with a presence that is no longer just guiding, but commanding. Not in force, but in clarity. Because what lies in front of you now is not a suggestion. It is an activation. A call to fully step into the identity you have been growing into without hesitation, without apology, without looking back. Because here is the truth that must settle in your spirit now. Everything that has been exposed, everything that has shifted, Everything that has been revealed about the people around you was never meant to pull you into reaction. It was meant to push you into transformation. And now that transformation is complete enough for you to live in it. This is the final warning. Do not shrink back. Do not question yourself again. Do not reopen doors that have already been closed through clarity. Because the moment you try to return to old patterns, to old dynamics, to old ways of thinking, you will feel the misalignment immediately. You will feel the weight, the discomfort, the tension that was not there before. Not because something is wrong, but because you have outgrown it. Archangel Michael makes this clear. This is where many people falter. Not in the process of growth, but in the moment after clarity, when they are tempted to return to what is familiar simply because it is known. But what is familiar is no longer aligned. And what is aligned requires you to move forward. This is your activation. To walk differently. To speak differently. To choose differently. Not out of force, not out of fear, but out of awareness of who you are now. Because your identity has shifted. You are no longer someone who seeks approval. You are someone who moves with intention. You are no longer someone who explains themselves to be understood. You are someone who understands themselves without needing external validation. You are no longer someone who tolerates misalignment for the sake of connection. You are someone who values alignment over attachment. And this identity must be lived fully, not partially, not occasionally, but consistently. Because consistency is what solidifies transformation. Archangel Michael reveals that as you step into this identity fully, something else will begin to happen. Your environment will adjust to match you. Not instantly, not perfectly, but inevitably. Because when you remain aligned with who you have become, anything that does not match that alignment cannot remain in your space for long. It either shifts or it leaves. And you must allow that process to happen without resistance. Because this is not loss. This is alignment. This is the final separation between who you were and who you are becoming. And there is something even deeper here. This is not just about you. Because your transformation carries influence. The way you move, the way you respond, the way you hold your position, it becomes an example. Not always acknowledged, not always appreciated, but observed. Even by those who resist it. Especially by those who resist it. Because your growth challenges what they have not yet confronted within themselves. And that challenge creates impact. But your responsibility is not to change them. Your responsibility is to remain aligned with yourself. To remain grounded in what you now know. To remain steady in the identity you have stepped into. Because this is where your power is fully realized. Not in proving anything. Not in explaining anything. But in being exactly who you have become. Without compromise. Without hesitation. Without looking back. Archangel Michael's final message is clear. This is your moment. Not to prepare. Not to question. But to step forward. Fully. Completely. Without returning to anything that clarity has already shown you is no longer part of your path. Because once you step into this fully, everything begins to align in ways you could not have forced before. This is not the end. This is the beginning of a new level of your life. And it requires the full version of who you are now. Type "I am ready" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1212 is now activated around your new identity. And as this final activation settles into your spirit, understand this. What God is doing through this message is not limited to you. Every word you have received is a spark. And when you choose to support this mission through super thanks with a PayPal link in the description, you are releasing oil into a fire that is reaching souls across the world. The Lord declares, "Cast your bread upon the waters, and it shall return unto you." And in this moment, your giving becomes a living act of obedience that opens the heavens over your life. Say it now within yourself, "I step into this assignment," and let that declaration move your hand into action. This is not a casual offering. It is a prophetic seed, planted in urgency, flowing with purpose, and carrying divine multiplication. Those who move now are not just supporting, they are stepping into alignment with a greater calling that will echo beyond what they can see. Act now, release your seed, and become part of the harvest God is unfolding through this message.